You ever look at a tiny pill and just wonder? It seems so simple, right? You just swallow it, but behind that simple little thing is a massive scientific puzzle. How did they figure out the perfect amount of medicine to pack inside?
Seriously, think about it. How did anyone land on that specific dose? If it's too little, it's not going to work. And if it's too much, well, that could be really dangerous. It's definitely not a lucky guess. No, it's the result of some pretty incredible scientific detective work.
And to make things even trickier, the journey to find the right dose for you almost always starts somewhere else entirely. Usually with an animal, like a mouse. So the real question becomes, how on earth do you translate a dose that works for a tiny 20-gram mouse into one that's safe and effective for a 70-kilogram person?
Well, they do it by creating a blueprint. Now, this isn't a physical drawing, of course. It's a really powerful mathematical model that basically maps out a drug's entire journey through the body. It's a predictive map that guides researchers from the very beginning, in the lab, all the way to your pharmacy. So, let's pull back the curtain and see how scientists actually draw up this incredible blueprint.
So solving this dosage dilemma is exactly where these blueprints come in. They're built using something called pharmacokinetic models. These are the essential tools scientists use to make sure a new drug is both effective and, most importantly, safe for all of us.
The science behind all this is called pharmacokinetics. I know, it's a fancy word, but it's actually a pretty simple idea. It's all about tracking what the body does to a drug. You know, how fast does it get absorbed, where does it go, and how quickly does the body get rid of it. This is the absolute core of our blueprint.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. There isn't just one way to draw this blueprint. Scientists generally follow one of two major philosophies. One is all about learning from observation, and the other tries to build a kind of virtual replica of the body from the ground up.
So let's start with that first approach, the one that's all about scaling up. This is what's known as the empirical method. Basically, it's based on collecting data, spotting patterns, and then using those patterns to make a really solid, educated guess.
The key technique here is something called allometric scaling. The big idea is that a lot of biological processes, everything from heart rate to how fast a drug is cleared from the body, they all scale in a surprisingly predictable way with an animal's body size.
Okay, so what does this look like in the real world? Well, scientists will test a new drug in a bunch of different animals. We're talking mice, rats, dogs, monkeys, and they collect all this data. Then they plot a key factor, like how the drug is distributed, against the body weight for each one, and they use a special kind of graph that is just brilliant at finding hidden connections in biological data.
And this is where the magic happens. When you plot the data this way, poof, a straight line emerges. This line shows that there's a consistent mathematical relationship across all these very different species. And because that line is so predictable, you can basically just extend it out to predict exactly where a human would fall. It's pretty amazing. This quote from the research just nails it. The whole system works because it rests on this one big idea, that underneath all the differences between species, the fundamental biology that connects body size to how a drug is processed is remarkably consistent across mammals, and that includes us.
But you know, body weight isn't the whole story. Scientists figured out they could make this blueprint even more accurate by adding another, kind of surprising layer of data into the mix.
It turns out an animal's lifespan is a fantastic clue about its metabolism. Species with shorter lives, like mice, tend to have super fast metabolisms, so they process drugs way more quickly. By factoring in this maximum lifespan potential, the predictions, like this one for caffeine, get so much more accurate.
Okay, so that was scaling up from what we can see. The second major philosophy, it takes a totally different route. This is the mechanistic approach, where instead of looking at patterns, scientists try to build a virtual human from scratch, piece by piece.
And even within this idea, there are two main ways to go. You can create an abstract blueprint, almost like a mathematical flowchart of the body, using what are called compartmental models. Or you can go a huge step further and try to build a stunningly realistic simulation of the body's actual anatomy, using physiologic models.
A compartmental model doesn't really care what a liver or a kidney looks like. Instead, it simplifies the whole body into a series of connected boxes, or compartments. So one box might be the blood, another might be all the body tissues. It's an abstract way of looking at it, but it's an incredibly powerful way to use math to describe how a drug moves from one part of the system to another.
But that other mechanistic approach, using what are called PBPK models, well, that's way more ambitious. The goal here is to build a true virtual human, kind of like a digital twin, that's complete with detailed organs, realistic blood flow, and specific tissue properties.
This approach starts with the fundamental biology, things like how much blood flows to the liver compared to the brain, how easily can a drug get into fat tissue versus muscle. And by building up from these real-world biological facts, scientists can create this incredibly detailed simulation of how a drug will actually behave in a living, breathing system.
So we have these two amazing, but very different ways of drawing a drug's blueprint. But why does all this complex modeling really matter? Well, the answer is, it completely changes how we get new medicines from just an idea in a lab to your local pharmacy. These blueprints are basically the master plan. They help scientists figure out not just the dose, but the schedule, like how often you should take it. They're used to design smarter clinical trials, they provide critical evidence for getting a drug approved, and they even help write the instructions that end up on the final label.
And believe me, this isn't just some niche academic thing. The impact is huge. Just look at this number. Between 2000 and 2008, modeling and simulations just like these contributed to the approval of a staggering 64% of new drugs that were reviewed by one of the key groups at the FDA. That's massive.
And you know, maybe the most important part is that these blueprints can sometimes tell scientists if a drug is likely to fail before it ever goes into expensive and time-consuming human trials. In one case, a model predicted that a new interferon drug just wouldn't offer much of a benefit, and later trials proved it was right. That early insight saved millions and let researchers focus their efforts on more promising candidates.
So, the next time you take a simple pill, just remember the incredible, invisible blueprint behind it. From a mouse to a mathematical model, it's this whole journey of prediction and precision. And it leaves us with a really fascinating thought. As these blueprints get more and more detailed, how long until they can model not just a standard human, but you? Could we be heading towards a future where every single prescription is perfectly designed just for your unique biology?